Still writing medical records manually? Imagine reducing the mental load of a full day's patient care. With ScribeNote, the AI-powered veterinary soap creator, you can streamline record keeping effortlessly as if you had a personal scribe. I recently used ScribeNote during a hectic string of emergency shifts when I managed over 20 cases in 12-hour days. It drastically cut down my medical record completion time, letting me focus more on patient care and less on paperwork. ScribeNote has truly transformed my workflow. Born from a desire to help, ScribeNote now supports veterinary clinics across North America. It is dedicated to improving veterinary wellness and reducing burnout. Try it now at scribenote.com with a free trial of 50 records. For Reviving Vet Med listeners, use the link in the show notes for 100 free notes, 50 more than the trial. Book a no-obligation demo call and see how ScribeNote can simplify your day. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Reviving Vet Med. Today's guest is someone who brings a truly integrative and deeply compassionate lens to healing and health. Simmi Latulippe is a functional medical coach, Ayurvedic medicine practitioner, certified menopause coach, and trauma-informed yoga and meditation teacher. Born into a lineage of Ayurvedic doctors, Simmi carries forward generations of traditional healing wisdom, blending it seamlessly with functional medicine and modern coaching to support whole person wellness. Simmi is especially passionate about helping women navigate perimenopause and menopause with confidence and clarity, and she offers a personalized approach that addresses the mind, body, and spirit. From biohacking hormones to trauma-informed yoga, Simmi's work centers on restoring balance, preventing burnout, and helping people reconnect with themselves. I am super excited to share that Simmi is now part of the Reviving Vet Med coaching team, where she brings her deep knowledge and lived experience to support veterinary professionals on their well-being journey. I'm super excited to share this conversation with you, so let's go ahead and get started. This is the Reviving Vet Med podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Marie Hollowaychuk. And my mission is to improve the mental health and well-being of veterinary professionals around the world. All right, welcome, Simmi. I am so excited to connect with you today. I can't wait to get into our conversation. I'm going to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your journey into the world of wellness and Ayurvedic medicine. What inspired you to make this your life's work?
Okay. Thanks, Marie. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I started after university. I had a degree in business. I went to university in Switzerland. I came back to Canada, got a wonderful job, but I was working in the hospitality industry, managing hotels. So I lived in Toronto, then Montreal. And then Montreal, I was transferred to Banff to open a brand new luxury 5-diamond hotel. But I was working for a Japanese bank. So Sumitomo Bank of Japan owned the hotel, and they transferred me to Montreal. I worked at the hotel industry for 12 years, and I worked up from director of marketing and sales to general manager. So I was in my mid-30s, and I was managing a team of over 300 employees. And I realized that all they wanted or all they cared about being an international bank was finance. All they wanted was me to bring the money in, how much was the profits, and every year they wanted more profits. So the people acquisition wasn't there, and they didn't care about the people. There was no human resources or skills with them. So what happened was, after my daughter was born, all of a sudden, the universe spoke to me, and it said, you have to change your profession. Otherwise, something was going to happen health-wise. And I listened, and I thought, oh, what am I going to do that I can completely change? And I had go to a field that's much more heartfelt, and I could lead with my heart. And so epiphany, I said, well, Ayurveda, it was in my DNA. I had to go back to school, which I did. And I continued working at the same time as going back to school. And I would take some months off so that I could go abroad and study. And so then I got my certification and in Ayurvedic medicine. And I started working in the field, which was much more heartfelt. And it came to me fairly easy. Like compared to a lot of the kids in my class at that time, they were struggling with it. So we diagnostically, we do pulse analysis where I feel a person's pulse and I can tell everything about them. And I think a lot of it is also intuitive as well as scientific and skills. So I could go into a deep soul level and see what was happening and where trauma was stored. Other people couldn't feel that. And I think because it was in my DNA, I had 4 generations of Ayurvedic doctors in the family. Everything just came intuitively and everything came as if transmission. I wasn't only learning from the books, but I was actually getting transmissions from the teachers. So the deeper learning was there. And that's how I started my journey in health and wellness and Ayurveda.
I love that. It's so interesting when you talk about being a multi-generational practitioner. Both of my parents are veterinarians, and it's not to say that I didn't struggle in vet school. Definitely anatomy was not my strong suit whatsoever, but a lot of it in the practice environment is similarly felt very intuitive, just felt so natural and doable for me. So I can relate to a lot of that. You wear so many different hats. You're not just an Ayurvedic practitioner, you're also a menopause coach, a trauma-informed yoga teacher, a functional medicine consultant. What is the common thread that ties all of that together for you?
Teaching women or teaching people how to have optimal health and really listen to the whispers of their body so that their body does not have to scream. In the world that we live in today, which is so fast, and so we're always on, or we're always supposed to be on, taking that time for stillness and finding that still point in ourselves where that's when we can listen to the whispers, is when we're in stillness. If we're always going and doing, we don't have the opportunity to actually listen to what our body, mind, soul, and universe are trying to tell us. We don't receive the messages. So all those things from, master herbalist to clinical nutritionist to functional medicine is all about the same. It's about listening to your body's needs and then reacting as what your body needs.
I love that. Speaking from experience, as someone who has experienced burnout a number of times, I am certain that it was because I didn't stop to listen sooner. And then, as you said, you get to this point where you're screaming. And I think as veterinary professionals, we're in very high demanding roles. There's high stress. Oftentimes our own health and wellness takes a back burner, right? Because we're spending so much of our time caring for our animals, our patients, our team members, our clients and their families. As you put it, how can listening to the whispers of the body help to avoid burnout and physical distress for veterinary professionals and others?
Yeah. So when we give so much of ourselves to others and we forget to receive, we get drained. Hence, then there's burnout, adrenal fatigue, chronic syndrome, whatever the title may be. We just don't have any energy. So vitality or our life force is the most important thing that we have. And if we deplete ourselves from our life force, which is prana or chi in traditional Chinese medicine, prana in Sanskrit, if we deplete ourselves from our life force, we have nothing to give. We can't give to others because we're empty. So I think the secret for healthy aging and longevity is making sure you are always full. That life force is vitality, is always living and breathing. And the best way to do that is coming into stillness, is coming into that still, quiet spot. Because usually when we're in stillness, the mind is quiet, the body can rest, and that's when the magic happens. That's when the work really takes place. And that's when we feel like, okay, we have more to give, especially in any health professional. Because as you said, we give ourselves to so many people on so many different levels that we have to make sure we have enough in ourselves to be able to give. We have to receive at the same time. And sometimes in our professions, we forget to receive because we're so busy going and doing, we don't have the time to receive.
Yeah. And it's so needed for sure. I know that you have a biohacking menopause masterclass. And it's funny. I love the word biohacking. I would love to hear your definition of biohacking in the context of menopause. What does that mean?
Biohacking menopause, it just came intuitively for the title of my masterclass. And I like biohacking because for me, biohacking is thinking out of the box. So we all know when we come into menopause, you go see your doctor, you have your blood tests, they tell you what's happening in your body, and then you decide if you want to go on any sort of hormone replacement therapy or if you prefer to do it naturally. And of course, the choice is up to the woman. But that biohacking, thinking out of the box is, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't do hormone replacement therapy because it doesn't feel right for me or it's not right for me. And so what can I do when symptoms do arise? How can I combat those symptoms in a more holistic or natural way? And that's what my program, Biohacking Menopause, is thinking out of the box, because I incorporate things like using food as medicine. And in Ayurveda, food is medicine. And that's the way we have to live. But I think because we're so busy and our life is so fast, we forget to eat properly. And again, that's a way of filling up your life force, is by eating the right foods. If you don't eat the right foods, they can harm you. And if you eat the right foods, they can heal you. So finding those healing foods, again, for allopathic medicine, it could be a little bit out of the box because doctors aren't trained on nutrition. So they don't know what foods to recommend for naturally increasing hormone levels. And there's beautiful yoga asanas as well as pranayama, which is breath work and meditation that are specific to menopause. So again, it's those secret tools that have been around for generations, for centuries, and yet haven't been discovered. And once women discover them, they know, okay, I know this is happening, so I'm going to do this breath work. And they can relieve the symptoms naturally, but they have to do the work. It's not a quick fix because it's not a pill. It's actually work that has to be done. So again, thinking out of the box and looking at unique treatments that can be used to biohack menopause.
I love that. So we're almost like hacking into the natural biology and wisdom of the body by giving it what it needs, whether that's fuel in the form of food or breath in the form of pranayama exercises, movement in the form of particular yoga poses. I love that. And I love the holistic approach to that, because there are so many different things that we can do for our self-care and for our bodies, especially during menopause, which can be such a challenging time. You know, that brings me to my next question, which is that perimenopause and menopause are really, up until recently, very rarely talked about in the veterinary space, which is kind of shocking when you think about it, because we are predominantly women. The statistics demonstrate that about 75 to 80% of of veterinarians are female, at least from our newer generation veterinarians. And when you take into account that most of our technicians and nurses are female, we are really predominantly female in practice and in other veterinary workplaces. So to all of our veterinary listeners, what are some of the signs that veterinary professionals in their, I'm going to say, late 30s, early 40s should be looking out for? And how can they start preparing for this time of their life?
I created a program as well for perimenopause, and it's specifically for women in their late 30s to mid 40s to prepare body, mind, and soul for perimenopause before actually symptoms start, so that they're not blindsided by symptoms. They actually come into it gradually, and then they can cope because the symptoms aren't as bad. Because first thing in the body is a grounding is really important, bringing the connection between mind and body. Sometimes we're so much in our mind, and our mind is so busy. There's so much chatter that we lose the connection to the feeling body. So sometimes the simplest things of bringing someone into mind-body connection can cause a profound shift in the way that symptoms arise, because all of a sudden they're feeling into their body and they're knowing, okay, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to maybe have this instead for supper as opposed to this, more intuitively in eating or intuitively listening to what the body needs. And then the other one, of course, is our liver energy. So liver being the organ that the hormones actually start to release in. If our liver is congested, again, if we're having things like maybe too much alcohol, too much caffeine, and just the liver energy is sluggish, well, hormones can't deplete naturally through the liver organ. So things start to get backed up. When things become backed up, that's when the symptoms get worse.
Mm.
And then the other big one is stress. How to manage stress in a balanced way, as opposed to a lot of times women through perimenopause, menopause, all of a sudden out of the blue will have anxiety and panic attacks where they hadn't before. And that's usually a buildup of stress in the body. Again, that's the way of the body to scream so that they can be heard. Because if the person is very stressed, they're probably not listening to the body. And there's a disconnect between mind and body. So again, something simply by bringing that person into the body helps the connection and helps to reduce stress. And breath work, of course, and meditation are big for reducing stress.
Yeah. So it sounds like just really arming yourselves with information so that you know what to expect before it's going to happen, and that you have the tools and strategies to be really able to tune in, because some things that we might overlook or cast aside as, well, maybe not even recognizing that it is a symptom per se, when in fact that could be a signpost that a woman is entering menopause or perimenopause. That's interesting. It's actually been news to me in my learnings. In my mid 40s, I'll be turning 45 in June. And so I've been reading, of course, a lot more about menopause and perimenopause. And I didn't realize the mental health implications of perimenopause and those hormonal changes. And I attributed a lot of my mental health challenges over the last few years to having a young family and being a single mom and growing a business and in the stress of the veterinary profession and all of these things, without recognizing, gosh, maybe hormones are playing a role, and, changes even in headache tendency and migraine tendency that I'd been having. I think when we think about perimenopause, we think about night sweats, and that's like the one big thing I'm having a hot flash, or whatever. But there's so many things. It's so much more than that.
I think they said in the medical community, there's over 240 symptoms. So all of varying degrees that women could possibly have. And I have to say, I think I was blessed because I knew how to set myself up for perimenopause. And I had a very easy menopause journey. And it was because I knew what to do. I had the tools and I had the techniques. So if something happened, because I've always been a really good sleeper, like sleeping has never been an issue for me until perimenopause. All of a sudden, waking up at 3 or not being able to sleep. I'm like, what in the world is going on? Because that's not me. Obviously, hormones. I wasn't stressed, so hormone related, but I knew what would work for me. So for myself, it was yoga nidra. So when I couldn't fall asleep, I'd put a yoga nidra recording on and I would listen to it. And oh my God, I'd fall asleep. And so just a few nights doing that was able to reset my neurotransmitters and my sleep came back. But again, it's not one size fits all.
No.
And that's the difference between the medicine I practice. I can't give you a pill that'll fix it right away. That's not what you want. Sometimes we have to be in the discomfort. So the discomfort happens to us for a reason. And usually it's because we need to do some work. And whatever that work is very unique for that person. But usually finding that peace in the discomfort and saying, oh, okay, my body, my soul wants me to do this. And listening to that, well, all of a sudden everything gets corrected.
Yeah. Where is this discomfort coming from? It's my body telling me that I need something that it isn't getting. And so how can I meet those needs? And how can I give my body what it wants? You've mentioned a lot about preparing the body, mind, and soul for perimenopause. And you mentioned a few simple practices, again, regardless of where they are on their hormonal journey. I love the idea of yoga nidra. I'm a yoga nidra teacher, and so I love the practice. Yeah. And, you talked about obviously paying attention to diet and other things. Are there any other small tips and strategies, or even just like areas that a person wants to be mindful of when they think about navigating their journey through perimenopause?
Well, one simple fix that I could tell anybody is grounding. If you're not grounded, I can't say, I feel safe. I feel secure. I am home. All those key things that ground us, then there's a disconnect between body and mind. If the mind is in overdrive, so too much chatter, too much stress, then the body is not grounded. So the first thing we need to do is make sure you're grounded. A simple technique is getting out in nature. Getting out in nature means being quiet, not going for a huge run, not always climbing a mountain, but going for a gentle, mindful, meditative walk and, just taking the energy in from Mother Nature, from the trees, from the plants, from the birds. That's super grounding. But again, you have to take the time to do it. You can't rush it. It's something that has to be done in a mindful way. And that's a good way for grounding.
I love that. Definitely speaks to me. Gosh, I never really named it as grounding, but you're absolutely right. I mean, if I'm working through my day and I'm feeling like I can't focus, I've just got too many things going on. I don't even really know where to start. I feel this urge to get outside and just take the dog for a walk, get outside. For me, it just feels being out in the expanse of the outdoors, like not in my office where it just feels like things are in the practice where it's like everything is kind of crushing down on me, but being out in the open and like you said, listening to the birds, tuning into your senses, smelling the fresh air, feeling the wind on your face or the sunshine or whatever it might be. Yeah. I never thought about it as that mind-body connection, but you're right. I probably am like, okay, getting reconnected with my body so that I can actually be present and more intentional and aware and mindful about the things that are in front of me. So,
yes. Yeah. And Mother Nature is a gift, right? It's just, she can work her magic.
Yes.
And sometimes when you're searching for an answer, if you go out in nature again and you ask, the answer will come to you.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes I get my best ideas on a walk or I solve my biggest problems on a walk. So that makes sense. So Simmi, you also are a trauma-informed yoga teacher. How does that framework show up in your coaching?
I love that question. So I'm on the faculty of trauma-informed yoga teacher training. So I teach future yoga teachers. And we all know that all of us have trauma in our body. There's small T trauma, there's big T trauma, but there's always stuff in our tissues. And that's how it helps in my training, is that talking with the client. For me, for pulse analysis can tell me a lot. By checking someone's pulse and going deeper into the soul level, I can see things that they don't even have to say to me, but they've given me the permission to go deep. So whatever their reading is, I share it with them. But with trauma, it takes multiple layers because sometimes that trauma may not even be from this lifetime, it may be from a past life. And so the different layers that we go through the trauma is something that we have to work uniquely and work personalized for the person, my client, because it's not a one size fits all. Sometimes a slower process, the trauma informed, and sometimes it takes months. Sometimes it can take years. I guess believing that you want to heal. And as we know, as health professionals, we can't heal anyone that doesn't want to heal themselves. They have to be able to do the work and go on that healing journey. And we're there to hold their hands, which is what I love to do. I love to hold people's hands and guide them through their journey, feeling like they're supported. And if they fall, I'm there to pick them up, but I can't do the work.
Totally. It's like that saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I learned that early on in my coaching, caregiving role outside of being in practice, just working with the humans in veterinary medicine is I can only help individuals that want to be helped. I get contacted by a lot of people that are like, I've learned all of this information and I just want to make everybody on my team do this, or I want to tell everybody they need to do that. It's like, it's not going to work. They have to want to do it, like the work and whatever it is. And definitely, I think as human beings, of course, we all experience trauma in our lives. And I think as veterinary professionals, we are uniquely exposed to particular traumas, like sometimes witnessing animal abuse, or we have families that can't pay for their pets' care. And so sometimes we have to make difficult decisions, in terms of euthanizing an animal that we could otherwise help. So really important for people to recognize that if you have experienced these things, if you do believe that you have experienced trauma, as you said, it is always stored in the body somewhere, that there are tools and strategies to be able to mitigate that. And that is
That's right.
work.
That is. And I think also to be mindful that it takes time. You can't rush it. As you go down through the layers of work, there are layers of the body, the tissues that are storing the trauma. It takes time to heal.
Yeah. I think that segues into a question that I wanted to ask you, which is what do you wish more people in vet medicine knew about the link between unresolved trauma, chronic stress, and physical symptoms? It sounds like it will take time to resolve it, but tell me more about the link there that people might not be aware of.
Well, I think the link for all that is really to listen to the body, to find that quietness, find that still point where you can listen to what the body is saying. Sometimes we just have to ask, check in. How are you feeling, body? And then wait for the answer. Right. And we don't do that. We don't do that. And even just as something simple as, do we tell ourselves how much we love ourselves? We could tell others that we love them, but do we tell ourselves? And again, with trauma, that's a big one because sometimes we can't say those words, I love you, to yourself. And maybe some of the work that has to be done, right? How much do we love ourselves? Because I don't think a lot of us say, I love you to ourselves every day. And maybe that's a practice that maybe we should do.
Yeah, I remember going through some work on my own that was really around cultivating more self-compassion, more self-love, self-forgiveness. And one of the recommended exercises was looking into a mirror and saying, I love you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not only like the most awkward thing I've ever done, but it also feels like wholly unnatural and hard.
And
like,
it shouldn't.
I know, but
it shouldn't. Yeah.
I know. I think about how I love you just rolls off the tongue when it comes to my dog or my daughter. And
that's
how
right.
more challenging and awkward it feels to say that to myself. I'm getting there. I've started definitely with gratitude practice for my body. So I'm a big believer in exercise and strength training and lifting weights. Of course, that also, speaking of perimenopause, is bone density and so on. And so at the end of a really tough workout, I will say, like, thank you, body. Thank you. How lucky am I that I can do this, that I can move my body and lift these weights and so on. So
I love that. Yes. Yeah. And we need more of that. Yeah. Right. We have to give thanks to ourselves and love ourselves more and on a daily basis.
Totally. Well, Simmi, you're a new coach with Reviving Vet Med, which we're super excited about. What do you hope to bring to the veterinary community specifically? I know you've worked with a lot of healthcare professionals as a coach already. What do you hope to bring to all of us in vet medicine?
Because vet medicine or healthcare professionals always give so much of themselves, I want to make sure that we're open to receive, because I think that's the most important. So once you're open to receive, then you can fill yourself up with energy, vitality, life force, prana, chi. So you're not feeling drained, you're not feeling empty, and you're not feeling like you're running on empty.
I love that. I love that. It goes back to making sure you fill up your own cup before you start doling out to everybody else. So that's a great analogy.
Marie, I just want to say one thing too. It just came to me. A lot of, I guess, techniques and tools that I've shared with you today, you'll notice are free. They don't cost any money. Walking in the forest, doing breath work, doing meditation, doing yoga, a lot of it is very cost effective. So another thing to give back, especially for vets, because as you give, there's so many financial barriers as well, sometimes in financial burdens, but just to know there are tools and techniques that aren't expensive, that don't cost a lot of money, that are accessible and that do work. It's evidence-based. They do work. There's centuries of literature on how they work. And it's just going back to ancient stories, ancient practices that have been around forever and just reviving them again.
Yes, I love that. Well, especially for our other non-veterinarian team members that unfortunately still don't make probably near what they should be making working in our tough profession. They too will be eager to learn about many of these tools and strategies that are, like you say, no charge. They're ones that are accessible to you anywhere, anytime at no charge. Well, I would love to be able to share with our listeners where they can learn more about your offerings. Obviously, they can work with you as a coach through Reviving Vet Med, but I know you have other workshops. Where's the best place for them to visit to find out more about you and what you offer?
Well, I'll send you the link for the biohacking menopause program. And I think that's the best place to start because it builds a strong foundation with the tools and the techniques. And then they can work one-on-one with me for a more personalized, direct approach.
I love that. We can definitely link up to that in the show notes. Finally, Simmi, one last question. What does reviving veterinary medicine mean to you personally?
I love your vision, your mission, and the foundation of your program. I think it's way overdue because it's very unique of your offerings, everything on your website, from podcasts to blogs to the coaches. It's a great time because in this veterinary medicine practice, it's long overdue. There's been too much burnout, chronic fatigue. There's too many vets changing and dropping out of the profession because they can't cope. And by you having this coping mechanism for them and giving them the tools and techniques and say, I've got you. And that's exactly it. That's what I love. It's like, I've got you. You can survive. We'll be there to hold your hand so you don't fall.
I love that. Thank you so much for those sentiments, Simmi. And I'm so glad we had the chance to connect today. And I look forward to hopefully many people connecting with you as well outside of this. So thank you once again.
Yes, thank you as well. Have a wonderful day.
You too. So that's it for this episode of Reviving Vet Med. I hope you took away some helpful insights into how tuning into your body's rhythms, especially during life transitions like perimenopause and menopause, can support your well-being and prevent burnout. If you do one thing after listening to this episode, I hope it's to forward it to a colleague or coworker who might need to hear that they're not alone and that there is support out there. We'd also really appreciate it if you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a new episode. If you're interested in Simmi's coaching offerings or resources mentioned today, check out the show notes or visit our website at revivingvetmed.com. You can also follow us on social media at Reviving Vet Med for more well-being tips, tools, and updates. If you have any questions about today's episode, ideas for future topics, or if you're interested in sponsorship, please send us an email at podcast@revivingvetmed.com. Big thanks to the team at Bear Beat Productions for producing this episode, and thank you for being here and for listening. I hope you'll tune in next time. In the meantime, take care of yourself. Bye for now.